Now, we spent a lot of time hearing Thomas's thoughts on the 5-1-2, and I'm going to let you know that a lot of our thoughts are the same as a lot of his thoughts, but we do have a couple of things that we're going to go through here and break down some 5-1-2 football. And we'll go ahead and start off with, we have 65 teams in the state of Texas that we consider in the Austin region. And these are just UIL. We did not pull private school numbers. So 65 UIL teams that we consider in our Austin region. This is a crazy stat. And we were doing the math on this. I went through and it looked at our magazine, which, by the way, become a Dave Campbell's Texas Football subscriber because you can get it right here. I have all my tabs for classifications. You can tell that we've been studying up because even though we put it together, we still use it as a point of reference. But I went through and I looked at our preseason rankings in the 63rd edition of Dave Campbell's Texas Football. There are Austin schools from 6A down to 2A Division I. There is a 1A school. They are not ranked, but I looked at our preseason rankings. How we break it up at Dave Campbell's Texas Football is 6A, we list the top 50 because we don't split those into Division I and Division II until playoffs times. On all of the other ones, we do the top 25 from each division. So 5A will have 5A Division I, 5A Division II. It equals 50, but 25 from each different division. There are 18 of those 65 teams that are ranked in the Dave Campbell's Texas Football / Associated Press preseason rankings. That's 27.69%. Nice. That's a lot. Like that's very high percentage of teams. If you're talking from a per capita, 65 teams, 18 of them are preseason ranked in the top 25, basically. Well, that's wild.
And switching gears to college a little bit, that's super exciting for the Texas Longhorns because a big pull to some of those kids is, you get to stay home and play for coming up an SEC program. So hearing that all of these teams are ranked in the Austin area, that's super exciting for the Longhorns.
It really is. And I mean, just as a whole, we talk a lot about, DFW has a lot of really good talent. Houston has a lot of really good talent. I mean, it's scattered across the state, but when you want to talk about, and I'm going to go down and pull these numbers every single week. I don't have all of them for all 21 regions yet. We'll continue to do that, but I would be dumbfounded to find one that has basically that high from the preseason rankings alone. So 27.69 percent of the Austin area teams are ranked in the Dave Campbell's Associated Press rankings. So we're going to go ahead and we'll show you which of those teams there are. Let's start off with Class 6A, the big boys around town. Number 1, Austin Westlake. We've talked about them a lot, going what now would be a four-peat with new head coach Tony Salazar. You have Lake Travis, Hank Carter and his squad in the same district at number 7. Austin Vandergrift, the Vipers, been a big one all season long. Number 34, Round Rock. Do not sleep on Round Rock. We'll talk about them a little bit later. Number 37, Pflugerville Weiss. And number 41 was superstar quarterback Austin Novosad in Dripping Springs. Moving on to the 5A classifications, we have Cedar Park at number 21 in 5A Division I, going down to 5A Division II. The Panthers out of Liberty Hill coming in at number 3. Number 8, Leander Rouse. Coach Mann has been building up a program that is looking to be on the cusp this year. And then the defending the reigning 4A Division I state champs in Austin LBJ now moved up to 5A Division II. Had they had stayed down a classification, I would bet that the ranking would be a little bit higher for them, but they are a 4A Division I team opting to play up. Their enrollment did not grow, opting to play up in that 5A Division II classification. So they're going to have a shortage of guys, but if anyone can do it, it'll be Coach Jamal Finner and his squad coming in at number 12 in 5A Division II. Moving on to the 4A classification in the Austin area here. This one, you want to talk about arguing about geography. Let me blow up our own spot here. I am a hill country girl. I grew up in Llano, Texas. Actually grew up in Kingsland, Texas, where that's where our house was, still is. That's only about 20 minutes from Marble Falls. So us putting Marble Falls in there has me even going,
I don't know about that.
We might be stretching it a little bit. But according to the Dave Campbell spreadsheet, which is the Bible in which I oblige to, Marble Falls coming in at Number 20 in 4A Division 1. Looking at 4A Division 2, number 7, the Wimberley Texans, a historic program that just continues to win in and out there in the much further south greater Austin area. Then you have one right there in the heart of it in number 15, Lago Vista, and then rounding it out with LaGrange. Obviously, Thomas Jones, a huge fan of LaGrange.
Yeah.
Interested to hear about that. So maybe they will be moving up in those rankings as the season starts. Now, going down into, we combine the 3A and 2A classifications because there's only one from each of them. 3A Division 1, number 8, Columbus definitely put themselves on the mark last year. They have quite a few studs on that roster. We'll talk about that. 3A Division 2, number 16 is Lexington, and then 2A Division 1, our final ranking in 2A Division 1, number 25, Flatonia. So out of the 65 total teams that we have listed in our Austin region, those are the 18 programs that are ranked heading into the 2022 season by Dave Campbell's Texas Football and the Associated Press, the official rankings of note for Texas high school football. Now, let's take it even further than that. So we're going to talk about some players to watch in the Austin region. And with this, we're going to throw it over to Mallory Hartley. She's our player breakdown expert.
Oh, you know me.
Cruton expert queen at her throne.
I feel like I kind of just get thrown in. They're like, hey, you can be an expert on that, right? I'm like, well, I'll try. So here we go. Let's go ahead and throw up our players to watch in the Austin region. We'll start off. His name sounds familiar because we've already talked about him 20 times during this podcast.
And we're going to keep doing it.
Dripping Springs quarterback Austin Novosad. He is probably one of the best passers in the country right now. We saw him at 7-on-7. And yeah, that he lives up to that hype right there. He's going to be a really good player. And if I can say, if we can put out a Mr. Texas football watch list, I think this dude is definitely going to be on it. He's currently committed to Baylor.
But Baylor staff better stay on him like a fly on poop, man.
Aranda better be giving him some NIL deals or helping him get some NIL deals here. But he's on flip watch, definitely. He's got offers left and right. Texas A&M and Ohio State definitely up there on his radar.
Yeah, so an Elite 11 guy who, when we were watching him, like we watched him play last year on Texan Live, and I was like, he looks good. I don't know what he did this offseason, but he looks, elite. That kid can not only throw, you see his passes and you're like, oh, holy crap.
You're like, I don't want to be catching.
No. Y'all got it.
I don't want to be a DB here playing against him. Up next, we have Austin Westlake, defensive lineman Colton Vosick. He is pretty prominent in the Westlake world. He's returning from last year. He's got offers from Oregon, Texas, Clemson, Oklahoma, Texas Tech, you name it. I've got some of his stats from last year, and I'm just going to read them off because it's absolutely incredible.
Preseason All-State guy for us.
Yeah. This dude recorded 56 tackles, including 16 tackles for loss, 10 sacks, 1 pass breakup, and 2 forced fumbles. That was just last season.
Light
no
work.
Big deal. I could do that.
No
right?
big deal.
You could do that.
Dude, 10 sacks is the thing that is most
sure.
impressive there, and he's a guy that's real quick off the line. When you start watching his tape, he's got great build to him, but he really does. He's very quick. I like his first step better than anything, and that's exactly what equates to those 10 sacks. But if you thought that Austin Westlake's defense is going away, they just happen to promote the best defensive mastermind in to their head coach. So he's a monster off the edge.
Up next, we got Austin Vandegrift, offensive lineman, Ian Reed. Funny enough, we talked to Drew Sanders, the head coach at Austin Vandegrift at coaching school, and one of the first players he mentioned, it was Ian Reed. This dude is unbelievable. He's a bully on the field.
Offensive line really kind of works like a certain dominance. Go out there, just wreck everybody. Yeah. He's impressive. He's a good, huge kid too.
I pulled up some of his tape before this just to watch him. He's throwing dudes left and right all over the field, man. He's
one of those that he sticks out his index finger and the poor defensive lineman is just flying 5 yards back.
Yeah, this dude's unbelievable. He's a Clemson commit, 6'6", 300 pounds. And what we learned, this is super interesting. Coach Sanders over there mentioned that he plays rugby and he carries the ball in rugby.
Because why not?
Because why not put that dude in the with the ball?
An immovable force.
Yeah. Up next, we got Manor running back Quentin Joyner. You may not have heard his name before. That's because to us, he's a sleeper running back. Yeah, this dude's going to be really good next year, but definitely probably one of the best running backs in the Austin area. Definitely one that you need to keep your eye on next season.
I was going to say, when it comes to Austin area football, specifically when you start looking at the teams that are always on the top, I think that we don't think of Austin as the primary spot for running backs per se. And in a recent, I'm talking recent history here.
Yes.
I'm not talking back in the day history. I'm talking recent history.
Because typically it's quarterbacks.
You have Cade Klubnik.
Yes.
You know, you at Lake Travis, you have Jaden Greathouse, or no, that's also Westlake. But when you start going through all the people that they have, and then LBJ, I mean, it's pass heavy offense. In the recent history, we have seen a lot of air raid attacks. We've seen a lot of stud wide receivers and stud quarterbacks. So when you start talking about running back, the first person that needs to start coming to your mind is Quentin Joyner, because this is a kid that, you might think he might be a little bit undersized. But the other thing, when you talk about Manor football, shout out Ishmael Johnson, this is a team that if they have the guy, they can move. They've got the assisting players around him that can do some damage, but Quentin Joyner will be the guy that moves the offense for the Mustangs, and I'm very, very excited. If this is a name that you're not familiar with, get familiar with it, because you're going to be hearing it a lot come the 2022 season.
Yeah. Up next, Austin LBJ running back Cedric Alexander was a big difference maker in the state championship last year, although they did not win. That dude's unbelievable. We got up close and personal with him. I was on the Austin LBJ sideline for that game. I was getting film for our DCTF All Access piece, and he's a really big dude. He's coming back for his senior season. I got a couple of stats of his from last year. He carried the ball 254 times, rushing for over 2,204 yards, and a simple 28 touchdowns.
Yeah, he was old reliable for them.
Yeah,
you know,
sure.
when you're looking at someone running for 2,000 yards, like you've got the guy that you needed, and he was impressive. But I really think that what he did was give that LBJ team stability when they needed it the most, and I think that you even saw that in the state championship game. Obviously, that game did not go how they wanted it to go.
Definitely.
A lot of fumbles, some of those, take that to who you will.
Yeah.
But it's just one of those things. When he keeps his hands on the ball, he's extremely slippery. He's hard to bring down, and so I think that he'll make a big thing for a LBJ team that lost a lot to graduation this past year.
Yeah. And lastly, on our list of players to watch, we've got Columbus offensive lineman Oscar Ramirez. We didn't want to leave out any of the smaller schools, but this dude is going to definitely be a difference maker on this team. He's a big guy, definitely one that they are happy is coming back for another year.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And when you get down, that's in the 3A Division I classification. Again, we mentioned Columbus coming in as our number 8 team in 3A Division I. They were a team that really lit up last year.
Yeah.
They were one that any week that we were in, we were talking about Columbus when it came to 3A Division I. But when you start to get down, we've talked a lot about 6A ball here. When you start to get down to those 3A levels, having sheer size and a guy that can move his feet, it's invaluable.
It's a difference maker.
It really is. And if you find a quarterback that can throw, or Columbus is always
back.
I was just going to say Columbus always has some good running backs, and so they've really done a good job of that, and he's going to be a key piece that they need to stay healthy to be able to execute the offense that they want to run down there at Columbus.
Yep. So there you go. Those are your players to watch in the Austin region. I think that's probably going to be one of my most favorite segments because I like digging down into those players. And
Grev Powers Jr.
Dude, let me call Powers real quick. Hey, man, I can help you. No, but no, it's really interesting to see, and especially because I'm such a college football guru, I like to see the ones that are committed to these big name schools or even like the smaller schools. I think it's just kind of fun. It's super interesting.
Absolutely. All right, there was players to watch. Moving on in our breakdown of the Austin region here on WTF. I can't even remember what I told you we were talking about next, to be honest. That's why I'm looking at the screen.
We're
storylines.
We're going to talk a little bit about Westlake.
All right, storyline number 1, and we've mentioned this a lot, so I won't spend too much time on this, but New Shap, same Westlake. That is kind of the big question here. You have Tony Salazar, obviously. Coach Todd Dodge rode off into the sunset after grabbing state championship number 3 in a row. Tony Salazar, we have been beating the drum about him forever. One, an unbelievable human, but literally might be the best defensive mastermind that we have seen in recent history in the state of Texas. The guy knows exactly what he's doing. Westlake's defense has been great year in and year out. It's one thing for him to move up. He's a guy that's been around that program for a long time. What really will be the key is finding a quarterback. That Westlake defense will look the same. Their offense, they still have Jaden Greathouse committed to Notre Dame. I mean, he's an unbelievable player. They have all the key pieces that they need. It seems like they just reload. There's no need for actual restocking. Finding that quarterback, replacing Cade Klubnik, will be something that'll be interesting, and that'll be a big task on the offensive coordinator because you have your defensive coordinator stepping in to be that guy. So being able to solidify that, we saw them at state 7-on-7. They got booted early in the consolation bracket. Not saying that Westlake is falling off by any stretch of the means, but they do have to. That is the big question. Can they solve that hole at quarterback? If they can do that, guess what? The likelihood of us seeing Westlake back in AT&T Stadium on December 17th, very likely. But until then, that will be the question heading into this season.
And I think if we had to dig just a little bit deeper, I think their offensive line may need a little bit of help too. Now it's Westlake. They don't really need any help, per se. But if we were going to bring up a second topic of discussion with this team, it's going to be at that offensive line. They lost big Connor Robertson to Texas, and they also lost Bray Lynch to Indiana, 2 of their biggest offensive linemen. They got a couple of guys coming back, but yeah, definitely one thing to watch is going to be if they can fill those big guys on the offensive line.
110%. So there's some more Westlake talk because let's face it, you cannot talk about Austin without talking about Westlake.
You can't.
Up next on our storylines to follow, a pair of players in the District 12 6A bloodbath. So what we mean by this is if you take a look at District 12 6A, let's just go through this gauntlet for a second. You're pairing kind of Waco area teams with Brazos Valley and Austin. So it's just this conglomerate. Temple, Harker Heights, who has definitely been on the come up the past couple of years. Bryan down there in the College Station area. You have Hutto, who they have their new head coach after Coach Brad LaPlante stepped up into the athletic director only role. And then Pflugerville Weiss. We've talked about them time and time again. They're a program down there in the greater Austin area, North Austin and Pflugerville, that has really put Pflugerville ISD on the map for the past couple of years. They seem to have a very consistent stream of recruits coming through there, a very well executed offense. But Hutto and Pflugerville Weiss obviously being the pair of players in that bloodbath of a district. Definitely keep your eye on that. That's some really good football that really stretches along that greater stretch of 35 right there. Hutto, I have a lot of questions about still. I will say that I think stability of having a home stadium is going to help them a lot. I was going to say, they got that new
stadium, yeah.
They do. It got delayed a lot. COVID put a lot in that.
Last year.
Weather. So I think that they're really looking for a little bit of stability. You've got a new coach coming in. You have, kind of a new scheme coming in. But they've got some players going through there. It'll be interesting to see. And if Hutto's going to strike at any point in time, now is the time for them to do it because reading in the tea leaves, and I have no official information on this, but it seems like the reason that Coach Brad LaPlante had moved up into that athletic director role is because Hutto will likely be opening another school here soon.
Right.
So if Hutto's going to strike, they need to strike now with all the players that they have before they split across the road. But Weiss definitely will have a chance. If you're looking at that district as a whole, I would say Weiss, Temple, and Harker Heights are the ones that you really are going to want to follow along. Bryan losing a quarterback last year after losing coach's kid. But 12-6-8, very interested to see that, and that's kind of the district that I'm very interested in heading down into the Austin area. And then I think we had one more storyline to follow. Realignment shakeups at the top. We mentioned one of these, the aforementioned Austin LBJ Jaguars, the reigning, they were contenders in the state championship against Stephenville last year. So we mentioned that they're losing a lot of players, but they did that the year before last. You'll remember that Austin LBJ team from 2020 had a pair of defensive backs on it that were D1 guys. They lost those guys. It didn't matter. Just reload. Coach Finner has done an unbelievable job with that program. But they are opting to play up into 5A Division 2. Reason being for that, travel, a big portion of that. It's kind of easier for them to be able, with where they're located, to stay in that conglomerate of Austin ISD type of schools. So instead of going 4A Division 1 and doing all that travel again, they decided to, even with their enrollment of, it's in the 800s, so they were already fairly small for 4A Division 1, to be honest with you. So bumping up is going to be a big challenge for them. But you heard Thomas Jones talk about that gauntlet that they've scheduled in the off season. If you're going to beat the best, you got to play the best, and Coach Finner knows that better than anyone. And talk about a motivator to get his team to go out there and play. You witnessed it firsthand last time.
Well, I'm interested to see how you feel about this too, because you went to Llano High School, so you guys were traveling quite a bit for these games. I went to Arlington High School. I think the farthest we traveled was to Pascal in Fort Worth, like 25 minutes. Do you think that really makes a massive difference in how your season's playing out? Or do you think Austin LBJ is going to feel that difference?
This is very two-tiered here. Growing up in a small country town, you're just used to that because that's the way it is. I mean, we had to drive 30 minutes to get to a Walmart. So it's kind of like you're kind of used to that.
Gotcha.
With Austin LBJ, theirs is more of, they're an inner city program. Some lack of funding could be there when it comes to gases. A big thing happening right now, and this is where we'll end this conversation after this, but gas prices too are huge right now. That's a lot of driving.
For sure.
So with them, it's more about looking at the climate of what you're in. It's more about looking at your funding that you're going to be bringing in with bonds and everything like that. So theirs is more opting to save a little bit of money for their program. But it does depend on, a lot of it is geography of where you're at and what you're used to doing and how your regular life is consistent. So, for each their own, but interested to see Austin LBJ. The other one, the big one, Dripping Springs. We've talked about their quarterback, Austin Novosad, a lot. We will continue to talk about him. They come in at number 41 in our 6A rankings. And you might be saying, well, how do you have one of the best quarterbacks in the state and you're only at that? Well, it's because they're moving up a classification at 2. They were 5A Division 1, going to go ahead. Or were they 5A Division 2?
I think they were 5A Division 1.
Okay, and then they move up, but they're in the 6A classification now, and that's going to make things just a little bit more interesting. Anytime that you move up, we talk about that, how well will their numbers turn out, because that's another big thing. Just because a school enrollment number might be big does not mean that the enrollment of the athletic department itself is very big. Dripping Springs is fine. They're a big school, but it will be interesting to see how that ends up shaking out. It's not like they're getting easy competition either. So interested to see that, but some big movement of teams that we have really high hopes for bumping up a classification. Those would probably be the biggest two, or the largest two.
And this team too, Dripping Springs, they're used to winning. Like they're averaging almost 10 wins a season dating back to 2016. So this team is used to winning. So it's going to be interesting to see if they can keep doing that. And Coach Zimmerman over there too, we talked to him at coaching school, and he seems pretty high on his guys. So
As he should be. And so that's kind of one of those things. But when you look at the rankings, you go, well, why are they down there at 41? First off, look at the 40 other teams in front of them. We have a plethora of good programs around here, if you haven't noticed, in the great state of Texas.
Prove us wrong, man. Prove us wrong. That's all I got to say.
Absolutely. And that's one of those things. When a team moves up to the largest classification, there is always that you're going to be knocked down a little bit because you need to get in there, swing your bat with the big boys, and let's see what you got. So very excited to see that.